Libra love, let me ask you this: what if the biggest financial blessing of your life isn't something you're waiting on anymore, but something already written in your soul's divine contract? This is not just another zodiac reading. This is your confirmation. The moment you landed here, a signal was sent to the universe that you're ready to receive what's been withheld, delayed, or quietly building behind the scenes, and now it's being released. From this very second, we are stepping into a sacred alignment, one that stretches from the stars into your daily life. And this video, Libra, is your invitation to finally claim the divine payout that belongs to you. Not because you were perfect. Not because you asked for it loudly. But because your quiet loyalty, your balanced soul, and your constant giving have created a spiritual overflow. And now it's returning with interest. You've sacrificed without recognition. You've kept the peace when others stirred the chaos. You've given grace when you could have chosen resentment. And let me say this clearly: the universe does not forget those who choose love while bleeding silently. This isn't just about cosmic energy. This is about divine justice. Libra, your ruling planet Venus is entering a rare trine with expansive Jupiter, a celestial handshake that rarely happens with this much potential for restoration. Doors will open. Inheritances, literal or energetic, are being delivered. The blessings are not random. They're precise. Personal. Tailored to your timeline. Now, let's ground this truth in something real. You're not here by accident. That fire in your chest? That tug in your intuition? That sense that something enormous is moving just beyond your field of view? That's confirmation. You are being realigned with what was always yours, but never fully claimed. And so before we go deeper, I want to take a sacred pause. Let me express my deepest gratitude for your presence here. Every like, every comment, every time you subscribe or share this video, you're not just supporting a channel. You're anchoring a frequency. You're helping this message reach others who've been waiting quietly for their moment too. Your support makes it possible for Zodiac Whisper Tarot to continue delivering these life-shifting downloads. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And trust me, my beloved Libra, you'll want to stay with me all the way to the end. Because what's being revealed in this reading is nothing short of spectacular. Something ancient is awakening. Something destined is unlocking. And it all begins right here. Now tell me honestly, what did your soul whisper to you today that brought you here? What inner alignment guided your finger to click, your heart to open, your eyes to read this? If something inside you feels seen right now, if your spirit says yes, comment below with the number 888. Not for luck, but as a sacred agreement. A signature to say, I'm ready for the divine payout I've earned. Because Libra, this moment is not about waiting anymore. This is about claiming. There's something remarkably sacred about the quiet decisions you've made when no one was watching. Not the grand gestures, not the loud declarations, but the moments you chose compassion over retaliation, balance over blame, and integrity over impulse. As someone deeply attuned to cosmic cycles and energetic patterns, I can assure you, those choices weren't invisible. They were encoded into your spiritual timeline. And now, the skies are reflecting them back to you. When the Justice card appears in a reading, especially for a Libra, the very embodiment of equilibrium, it doesn't simply speak to fairness in the external world. It's a mirror of soul-led decisions being honored on a much deeper level. This is not karmic punishment nor celestial reward in the traditional sense. It is energetic realignment. It is truth returning to its rightful place. For many Libras, the pursuit of harmony has come at a personal cost. You've often been the one to absorb tension to keep the peace, to silence your own needs in the name of love, to choose understanding when misunderstanding would have been easier. That kind of inner strength is rarely celebrated. But now we enter a timeline where the hidden currency you've built through all that grace is being released back to you, tenfold. The Six of Pentacles emerges not just as a symbol of receiving, but as proof that divine reciprocity is real. You are not being compensated out of pity, you are being rebalanced, because you lived with deep spiritual integrity when no one clapped for you. As a guide in the sacred science of astrology, I want you to see what's happening in your chart this month as more than coincidence. Venus, your ruling planet, is engaging in an expansive trine with Jupiter, a cosmic handshake of generosity, healing, and divine timing. You're not manifesting from lack anymore. You're collecting from what you've already poured out. This is what I call divine arithmetic, where the equations of love, loyalty, and spiritual maturity finally add up in your favor. And while I don't speak here from a place of religious dogma, I know the power of quiet faith. I've seen people, time and again, plant seeds of kindness with no guarantee of return, only to wake up years later to find an unexpected harvest blossoming through a job opportunity, a debt forgiven, a stranger's kindness, or a breakthrough they never imagined. These aren't coincidences. These are divine interventions disguised as ordinary moments. And perhaps, just perhaps, what's opening for you right now isn't random, it's redemptive. So I invite you to see your past not as something to resent, but as a field of planted grace. Every time you chose not to defend yourself harshly. Every time you gave, even when your heart felt empty. Every moment you stayed when it would have been easier to walk, those were not wasted. They were stored. And now, they're returning. This isn't about proving your worth, Libra. You've already done that by staying true to your nature when it would have been easier to bend. Now the energy is bending for you. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned. Not because you shouted louder, but because you listened deeper. And in a world so quick to reward the loudest voice in the room, your quiet strength is what's finally being recognized, not by people, but by the divine design itself. If this part of your story resonates with you, take a moment to reflect. What have you silently given without expecting anything back? What would it feel like to finally receive without guilt? You don't owe anyone an explanation for this moment. You've earned your return. Let it come. Let it find you. And if your heart agrees, I invite you to comment below with the number 222, a sacred number of alignment, balance, and confirmation that your energy is returning home. Some alignments don't just light up the sky, they awaken ancient truths buried in your soul. And Libra, this month, the stars are not simply offering you a new opportunity. They're reintroducing you to a promise your spirit once made long before you arrived here, a vow to become everything you already are, when the time is right. That time, dear one, is now. When Venus, your ruling planet, forms a harmonious trine with Jupiter, the planet of divine expansion and grace, it's more than an astrological transit. It's a cosmic permission slip. A green light from the universe saying, you don't have to strive to be chosen anymore. You already are. This energy unlocks doors you didn't even know existed. It delivers breakthroughs through means that may look unassuming at first, a phone call you weren't expecting, a message from someone you thought was gone, a shift in an agreement you forgot you made, a moment of clarity that reframes everything. And yet, because Mercury is also in retrograde during this window, the blessings might arrive wrapped in questions. They may require a second look, a pause, a reevaluation. That's not a setback, that's a divine invitation to slow down enough to recognize what's truly valuable. Sometimes the gift is hidden inside the delay. Sometimes, what looks like a detour is actually a perfect realignment. If you've been feeling like something was on its way, but just wouldn't land, this is why. The universe has been preparing the exact conditions for it to not only arrive but to arrive when you're ready to hold it with clarity, with maturity, with peace. Because this time, you're not here to perform for your breakthrough. You're here to embody it. You're not chasing. You're attracting. You're not proving. You're allowing. In tarot, the appearance of the Empress is no accident during this energetic phase. She is the full embodiment of divine receptivity, not passivity, but magnetism with purpose. She reminds you that the most powerful transformations don't require exhaustion. They require alignment. And for someone like you, Libra, someone who has spent lifetimes trying to maintain peace outside of themselves, this is a turning point. This is your chance to receive from a place of inner balance, not outer sacrifice. In my years of guiding others through these deep energetic patterns, I've witnessed again and again that real breakthroughs often come in the quiet, disguised as something ordinary. A conversation. An offer. A reunion. A shift in the atmosphere. They don't always crash through the ceiling, sometimes they whisper. And when they do, you have to be centered enough to hear it. I've also seen that these moments often collide with deep faith. Not religious doctrine, but that still, unshakable knowing that you're being held by something greater. Some call it grace. Some call it timing. Some call it God. Whatever name you give it, the truth is this: what's meant for you will always find its way back, even if it was delayed, even if it was once lost, even if you've forgotten how badly you once prayed for it. And so I say gently, be open to the way it returns. It may not look like you expected, but it will feel like home. Don't brush off the call just because it's not loud. Don't dismiss the offer just because it comes wrapped in mystery. And don't second-guess your worth now that the blessings are arriving. You didn't earn this through striving. You magnetized it by living with honesty, grace, and heart. If something in you feels like it's waking up right now, like you're remembering something you never quite put into words, that's not imagination. That's alignment. And if you're ready to welcome this season of sacred return, I invite you to take a deep breath, trust the unfolding, and comment the number 1212 below. Let it be your sign that the promise is arriving, not because you chased it, but because you finally stopped running from your own power. There's a certain softness returning to your life now, Libra, not a weakness, but a restoration of breath, of rhythm, of balance. After so long in survival mode, navigating financial strain, emotional pressure, or even the quiet ache of feeling unseen, this moment is inviting you to step into a new kind of wealth. Not just the kind that shows up in your bank account, but the kind that shows up in how your shoulders finally relax. The kind that shows up when you realize you're no longer holding your breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. When we talk about money during this cycle, we're not talking about luck. We're talking about energetic return. What's arriving for you now is not random, it's a sacred recalibration. Maybe it's a check that comes through unexpectedly. Maybe it's a job offer you once dreamed of and gave up on. Maybe it's simply someone paying you back, literally or energetically. But in all cases, what you're receiving is not charity. It's not coincidence. It's restoration. Because, Libra, you've been planting seeds with your energy all along through your honesty, your devotion, your ability to show up for others even when no one was showing up for you. That kind of generosity doesn't disappear. It travels. And now, it's finding its way back to you. This is why I often say to write it down. Not just to manifest, but to affirm. To tell your nervous system, it's safe now. It's safe to receive. So, if it feels right in your body, take a moment to comment or journal these words. I am ready to receive what's mine. Not as a demand, but as a declaration. An opening. In the area of love, Libra, the shift is just as powerful, but it's internal first. You're not attracting the same lessons anymore because you're not vibrating from the same frequency. You've stopped shape-shifting to fit in. You've stopped hiding the parts of yourself that were too much for others to understand. And because of that, love that shows up now will feel different. Not overwhelming. Not confusing. Not like a maze you have to solve. It will feel clear, honest, mutual. The kind of love that doesn't require you to trade your light for acceptance. You may meet someone during this time who surprises you not with grand gestures, but with their steadiness. Or maybe an existing connection deepens in a way that makes you feel emotionally safe again. This is love as co-creation, not self-erasure. This is someone who sees all of you and chooses you not in spite of it, but because of it. When it comes to health, the call is simple but profound: breathe again. You've been holding too much, for too long. Stress, guilt, unprocessed further lived in your body like guests who overstayed their welcome. But you get to let them go now. Start small. 10 minutes each night, with a candle lit, just you and your breath. That's not a luxury. That's medicine. You might also find that your physical energy shifts as your emotional burdens lift. This is not accidental. Your body is an instrument of spirit. It responds to clarity, to stillness, to joy. When you stop feeling guilty for resting, your healing accelerates. You start living from alignment, not exhaustion. There's a deeper invitation here, one I've seen mirrored in both cosmic wisdom and the real, miraculous stories of people who've surrendered their timing to divine timing. When you give yourself permission to stop striving and start receiving, something sacred unlocks. It's not about sitting back and waiting, it's about finally acting from a place of worthiness, not desperation. You are not here to hustle for love, for money, or for peace. You are here to embody them, and allow them to flow to you as a match to who you've become. So if this message speaks to your spirit, if it feels like a whisper of truth buried deep in your bones, you're not imagining it. That's alignment. That's your soul nodding yes. And if you feel called, write down the number 121, a reminder that one step of faith, plus alignment, always equals breakthrough. Sometimes, the most powerful turning points are the quiet ones, the kind that don't come with fireworks or applause, but with a soft internal shift that whispers, I'm not playing that role anymore. And Libra, as we near the end of this transformative month, you're being called to recognize the chapters in your life that no longer belong to the version of you that's emerging. These are not failures. They're not regrets. They're just outdated contracts your soul is ready to release. Throughout your journey, you've likely taken on the role of the peacemaker, the one who absorbs tension to protect others from discomfort. You've swallowed words to preserve relationships. You've said yes when your spirit was screaming no. And at times, you confused your ability to carry emotional weight with your worth. But the truth is, that chapter is closing. Not because you're bitter. Not because you're giving up. But because your soul is wiser now. It knows the cost of overextending. It knows that silence, when rooted in fear, is not harmony, it's erasure. In the language of energy, the close of a year isn't just about endings, it's about integration. You're not abandoning the old self. You're honoring the lessons it carried. And part of that honoring means recognizing where you stayed too long, gave too much, or dimmed your light to keep the peace. These were not mistakes. They were sacred experiences. But they no longer define you. What's being asked of you now is a sacred audit. A review not of your performance, but of your alignment. Where did you lose your voice to maintain connection? Where did you settle for a fraction of love when your soul was built for fullness? Where did you mistake tolerance for strength? These questions aren't meant to shame you, they're invitations. They help you see the invisible threads you're still carrying so that you can cut them with compassion. There's power in ritualizing this process. You might write down the roles you're no longer willing to play. The agreements you're no longer available for. The emotions you carried that were never yours to begin with. And then release them, be burning, by tearing, or by simply speaking aloud. I no longer consent to carry what isn't mine. From a spiritual psychology perspective, closure doesn't come from waiting for others to validate your journey. It comes from choosing to validate yourself. And sometimes, that means forgiving yourself for the versions of you who didn't know how to ask for more. Who accepted crumbs because crumbs were all that felt safe at the time. That version of you deserves love, not judgment. And part of stepping into your next chapter means choosing to love all your past selves, especially the ones who were simply trying to survive. In the Christian faith, there's a quiet miracle that happens when someone finally chooses to rest. Not in the absence of responsibility, but in the presence of surrender. Surrender to something higher, something more aligned, something gentler. You don't need to earn your way into peace. You don't have to justify your healing. Grace isn't awarded, it's received. And maybe you've been taught to ask for permission to be loud, to be wealthy, to be joyful. But now is the time to revoke that conditioning. This isn't about proving your growth. It's about living it. Unapologetically. Softly. Boldly. In your own way. So if any part of this resonates, if your heart knows it's time to retire the old scripts, take a breath and write it down. Not for me. Not even for the world. But for you. Let this be the line between who you've been and who you're becoming. And if it feels aligned, comment the number 333 below as a sign that you're ready to end the chapter not with bitterness, but with peace. Imagine what could shift in your world if lack was no longer the lens you viewed life through. If every decision wasn't filtered through fear or limitation, but through clarity, purpose, and enoughness. Libra, this is the moment when abundance stops being a distant hope and starts becoming a responsibility, a sacred tool, not to impress the world, but to impact it in the way only you can. You were never meant to accumulate just for the sake of it. You were meant to circulate, to channel, to create something far bigger than yourself. That's the real purpose of what's arriving. It's not wealth for applause. It's wealth for mission. When your soul signed up for this life, it didn't just ask for harmony. It asked for the opportunity to be a vessel for beauty, for justice, for restoration. And you, more than most, have felt the tension between having the heart to help and not always the resources to match that heart. That's about to change. But with that change comes a deeper invitation not to consume more, but to become more intentional with what you've been entrusted with. Because spiritual wealth isn't just about what comes in. It's about what flows through you, who you uplift, what you build, how you respond to the world once you're no longer stuck in survival mode. You might find yourself asking different questions now. Not, can I afford this? But, does this align with the bigger picture of who I'm becoming? Not, what do I get out of this? But, what can I do with this to multiply good? Those are the questions of a soul stepping into stewardship instead of scarcity. And when you begin to think like that, the universe doesn't just respond, it expands you. Some people wait for the perfect moment, the perfect amount, the perfect sign. But what I've seen time and again in both cosmic patterns and real-life testimony is that miracles arrive when faith moves first. You don't have to be fearless, but you do have to be willing. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need the clarity to say, I'm ready to be trusted with more. There are quiet stories all around us of people who, once they had their breakthrough, turned it into a blessing for others. Not because they were saints, but because they remembered what it felt like to live without. I've seen people take unexpected windfalls and use them to rebuild homes for strangers, fund education for those who never had the chance, or simply show up for a friend in crisis without hesitation. These aren't rare exceptions. These are souls who understood that abundance is most powerful when it's passed on. In your own way, you've already been preparing. Every time you imagined a bigger life, not just for yourself, but for the people you love, that was the soul whispering the shape of your future. Every time you dreamed of having enough to give freely, that was a preview of the mission encoded in your being. Now, that mission is calling. And the truth is, you don't need to wait for millions to act from this space. Even now, your mindset is what unlocks the next level. Start where you are with what you have. Practice generosity in small ways. Make space in your life for the things you say you desire. And above all, believe that you were not only made to receive, you were made to be a keeper of divine momentum. So if your heart feels a quiet yes to this, if something inside you is stirring with possibility, I invite you to speak it into motion. Comment the number 777 below as your energetic agreement that you're ready not just to receive, but to serve. Not just to collect, but to circulate. Because what's coming is sacred. And so is the way you'll carry it. Libra, if you've ever felt like you've been quietly passed over. If you've spent years wondering when it would be your time. I want to offer you this truth. Sometimes God hides you not because you're not ready, but because He's preparing the world to receive the version of you that's been forming in silence. What's coming isn't flashy. It's not about applause or validation. It's about divine justice. A sacred rebalancing. A personal, profound return to everything your soul was promised before the world tried to convince you to shrink. This win is not for performance, it's for peace. It doesn't arrive to prove anything to anyone else. It comes to prove to you that your inner work has not been in vain. That every tear, every sacrifice, every silent yes to grace was seen. You are not stepping into this blessing because you begged for it. You're stepping into it because you aligned with it. You earned it not by fighting harder but by surrendering more deeply. And now, you no longer need permission. Not to thrive. Not to speak. Not to shine. You are allowed to rise, boldly and beautifully, without apology. So as you close this video, I want to ask you what would change in your life if you stopped asking for approval and started walking as if you were already chosen? What would you build if you truly believed you were worthy of overflow, of ease, of love that doesn't require you to disappear? What would it feel like to receive? And not flinch? These are not distant dreams. These are the questions your future self is already answering, just waiting for you to catch up. And now, I invite you to claim it. Not just watch this video and feel inspired, but to anchor that energy with action. Start by writing it in the comments. Declare it with clarity and conviction. You can write, I no longer ask for permission to prosper. My greatest victory has arrived and I'm ready to hold it with a strong heart. I am Libra, the one who deserves balance, abundance, and pure love. When you write it, you shift something not just in your mind, but in the energy around you. You give your future self a signal. You mark the moment when everything started to turn. And when you like, comment, subscribe, or share this message, you don't just support this channel, you help send this energy to someone else who's been silently waiting for their own return. From the heart of Zodiac Whisper Tarot, I want to thank you deeply for being here. For showing up for yourself. For being open to receive what is already yours by divine design. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. This is your time, Libra. Your moment of return. Your sacred payout. And the best part? This is only the beginning.